a few people, and there's something about being in a room like this when there's the one person. There's 250 people in the room, but you only see one. I think it's the way that God looks at each of us, but it definitely is the way I look at my wife. And she would hate me for asking her to do this, but Susan, would you stand up? We've been married for 29 years, and we've just been asked to lead our first marriage conference, and two things have been true since then. We have been like, what would we possibly tell people about marriage? And then also, like, I've been like the worst husband ever since I said I'll help lead the marriage conference. So, but thank you for helping make this possible for me. I mean it. Okay. Each of our 3 children learned to swim in a New Smyrna Beach, Florida hot tub. It was safe and secure. It was small and shallow. It was the perfect place to start, but it had its limitations. No cannonballs. No backflips or gainers. No 200-meter butterfly, and no deep snorkeling for tropical fish. Hot tubs are for soaking, not swimming. And it didn't take long, with the large pool next to it and the Atlantic Ocean on the other side of that, for them to begin to experience that feeling like maybe we were made for more. Like, is there something more, something deeper, something further? And they're hearing from someone who cares about them. Yeah, there definitely is. But they had a choice to make. Stay in the safe, secure, small shallows, or go deeper, further. It's the same choice that a fisherman in Luke chapter 5 by the name of Simon had to make. The scene opens, Jesus is teaching a great crowd of people, and they're pressing in against him. And just like if you started coming at me, he starts backing up so that he can still teach. And he's come right to the edge of the water, the shoreline. I kind of imagine little waves lapping up on his heels. And he looks right over to the side, and he sees some fishermen. And they're cleaning their nets. They're not counting fish. They're not selling fish. They're not comparing fish. There were no fish. All they could do was just clean their nets. It had been a bad day at work. And they're probably running through the same feelings of disappointment with the accompanying questions that you and I ask. You know, questions like, what am I doing? Why isn't this working? What's wrong with me? And it's in that moment that something amazing happens. He got into the boat, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Jesus got into the boat, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Jesus got in Simon's boat. And when Jesus Christ gets in your boat, it changes everything. And if you've kind of been in this faith world and you go to church and you sing songs with his name in it and you like his holidays, but he's never gotten in your boat, you're missing it. I was missing it. And when he got in my boat, I no longer wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be in ministry, which was the shock to everybody in my world. And they kind of said, like, you're probably hearing him wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? But when Jesus Christ gets in your boat, he changes everything. And he changed everything for Simon. And so before we go any further, I've got to ask, has Jesus Christ climbed in your boat? And if you think, I'm not sure, Ask the people around you if you're different than you were a year ago, 5 years ago, or like Matt said, just 2 years ago. Am I any different? If not, you may be in religion, but not relationship. You may have taken knowing about him for really experiencing him. Has Jesus Christ gotten in your boats? That's first. Second, it says he asked him to put out a little from the shore. How about that? The Savior of the world asked, hey, could you just a little? And where did he go? Just a little out from the shore. Well, that would be a small distance, safe, pretty secure, and shallow. He's in a hot tub. Jesus invites him out a little, as if to say, would you give me this? But that's not all he asks. He doesn't want to give him a hot tub. He wants to give him an ocean. And so then he says, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. It wasn't a question this time. It was a command. Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Where's he telling him to go? To a place and a posture. The place, go to deep water. The posture, let down your nets for a catch. It was a command, but it was also a test. And it was a test that Simon almost failed because he answered the question, he answered the command with a fact first. Master, we fished all night and caught nothing. That was true. That was a fact. But that's not where the answer ended. It ended in faith. But because you say so, and then he followed it up with obedience, I will let down the nets. And the Bible says that when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and to help them. And they came, and they filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees, and he said, "Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man." For he and his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. What an amazing day. I mean, that's the best day he's ever had. Wow. Both boats filled so full that they almost sank. Isn't that the life you want? For Jesus to fill you to the point that you're like, I'm sinking. I'm so full of your abundance, so full of your love. But the truth is, it was a great start. For a lot of people, that would have been the finish too, right? You've been like, I'll go on the traveling circuit. I'll go on the speaker circuit. I'll tell everybody about my massive catch. I'll be at all the Bass Pro Shops. I'll let everyone know about the time that we almost sank 2 boats full of fish. And it was just the start. Because later, Simon would be one with his hands that fed 5,000. It was just a start. Now he's feeding 5,000. Simon, his feet would walk across water, real water, a lake. He would walk on water, not just the Savior of the world. Simon walked on water. It was just a start that day. Simon would go up on a mountain one day with Jesus. There were only 3 people that went with him. And Jesus' insides, his divine insides came out. And it says he shone like lightning. Simon saw the deity within the God-man Jesus. This day at the lake was only a start. It was only a start because they would have another day like this when the risen Jesus, days after he was crucified and rose again, was at the lake again. And he yells out to Simon, "Throw the net on the other side. Throw the net on the other side." And he had another day of fishing just like this one. This was only a start. He had invited Simon deeper, but he also wanted to invite him further. And this is how he does it. Then he said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So they pulled their boats up on shore, dropped their nets, left everything, and followed him. See, Jesus knew that with the Son of God, transformation came through continuation. That it wasn't just a series of starts and stops, like we're pulling out of the driveway and back in, and we never really get out on the road. But that if you would follow him, he would make you something more than you were. That if you follow him, he'd help you live with purpose, and you would lead with impact. But you follow him from, and you keep going to, and you do it with. And that's what he invites him to. This transformation by continuation. In CLC, we believe that God is calling us deeper and further as an organization. We have a wonderful, amazing history, a legacy of God's faithfulness, his goodness. We've seen 12,000 men come through CLC, and we believe he's not done. We believe that our future is as exciting and bright as our past. And this morning, we want to share a little bit about how we feel like God's inviting us deeper and further. So this is when we transition to the slideshow portion of the day. Fast forward in your minds and your bodies, get in the time machine. We're going to the year 2030, 5 years from now. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but 5 years from now, something will be true. We're asking the question, what will it be? And our team has come up with some amazing vision and dreams. And here's some things we've kind of thought. We're going to spend the next 5 years committed to this mission of equipping men who follow Christ, live with purpose, and lead with impact. And in 2030, our goal is to have 20,000 men who have come through CLC and who have been encouraged in their discipleship and developed as leaders. Right now, that number sits at 12,000. We've got some work to do. This is going to mean that men are becoming mature followers of Christ, that they're becoming the kind of husbands and fathers that you'd long to have and long to be, that people in their workplaces are encountering Christ, that churches are being strengthened, and that they're being launched, these men are being launched as disciple makers or kingdom leaders, servants to the church, people, the sort of men that you would want in your life, men that you would go to and say, would you teach me what it looks like to follow Jesus, like Matt learned to do. In 2030, we want to see 20 CLC areas around the country and in Latin America. Areas where 5 things are true. There's a city leadership team, kind of a local board that's anchoring us there. A CLC director. We've got CLC groups happening in marketplace and churches, but not just one church, multiple churches. And where one CLC group is cascading into the next, and we're launching people to have an exponential impact. That's what we want to see in the next 5 years. In that time, we'd like to see annually 3,000 men enjoying and engaged in CLC. Right now, we're at about 855 groups. We think with God's help, we could have 3,000 men in 350. But it's going to take a few things. Cultivating new leaders. Focusing on the next generation of men. Updating some of our delivery. A focus on training for our staff, for our facilitators, for city leadership teams. And an abundance mindset. A sink 2 boats full of fish mindset. That's what we'd like to see God do in the next 5 years. And last, we would like to grow our team. Our team is small and mighty, but we don't want them to be small and mighty. We want it to grow and grow into places where we're currently not. When I got here, I said, wow, we have an amazing team, but there's some cities where we should have directors. I mean, major cities where you're doing business, Charlotte, Dallas. Why don't we have CLC directors in these places? And we're asking God, reveal to us where you want us. We would love to hire these staff and put them in these places, but it's going to take a few things. It's going to take maybe adjusting our sites and putting it on some full-time talent. In order to have full-time, you're going to have to provide benefits. So we're looking into how can we provide benefits for a full-time area director. We're going to be raising national funds to seed local markets to see if we can see God water that seed and grow an area. A long-term commitment to a city, and then continually cultivating that next facilitator, that next group. Those are all the things we'd like to see God do in the next 5 years. So how do we get there? Well, if we actually arrive there, it means three things. One, we've truly prayed. Our first method in the way that we're reaching men is we have a prayerful posture. We're just praying. We had our CLC National Day of Prayer last January, where all of our area directors have a set time each week where they're dedicating to pray, and half of them told me, I don't need one time in the week. I pray every day for this, which I loved. We also have become a truly aligned organization around our mission. That everything we do is really funneling everything to that mission statement of equipping men who follow Christ, live with purpose, and lead with impact, or we're not going to do it anymore. And then last, that we'd have 25 well-trained area directors deployed across the landscape of CLC. That's what we would love to see happen in 2030. But to get there, a few things are going to need to be true. First, we're going to focus on coming alongside continuers. Who are continuers? Where do we get that phrase? Colossians 2, 6 and 7 says, So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in him. And then it describes what that might look like. Being rooted and built up in him, established in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thanksgiving. How about that? Who doesn't want to be rooted and built up and established and overflowing? I want that in my life. I want that in our CLC groups and the men that come in our doors. Next, we're going to focus on our city leadership teams. These groups are the vital backbone of CLC, and they ensure our sustainability in a local market. What we're finding is that some of our beachheads, places we've been for years, when this isn't present and a director says, I think my time is over, that there's not anybody calling to say, can we keep this thing going? And we need to have some local backbones that kind of keep CLC having an enduring presence in those communities. So we're going to focus on that. Next, we're going to engage our alumni. Like I said, 12,000 men have been involved in a CLC group. That's a rich and ripe group of cultivated leaders waiting to be deployed. And we're having these rallies or re-engagement sessions in different cities, Atlanta and in Pittsburgh, and the craziest things happen. You get men together with Jesus at the center, and you call them to more, and guess what? They're saying, I'll start a group. One of our board members, Preston Poore, was at one of these things we did in Atlanta, a re-engage night. And Preston is there to kind of invite people to get involved. And I don't know if he knew he was going to do this or not, but he said, I'm starting one right now. Who's with me? Which I really appreciated. And there was a guy at my table that night, and I said, Rick, what are you thinking? And he said, yeah, it's not the right time for me. And I said, yeah, I get it. And so a few of us start praying that Rick, who's an amazing guy, that he would get involved in a group. No kidding. About a month later, I get a phone call. Rick's leading the group with Preston now. So when we get together with Jesus at the center, he doesn't just touch us, but he inspires us. He calls us, and we're led to then touch others. We're going to continue to offer a curriculum experience. I want to tell you this. I'm starting a CLC group. There were on our back porch the other night, there were 14, 28 to 32-year-olds and their wives, those that were married. And as I went around the circle, I said, hey, why did you say yes to this? This is one of the biggest yeses other than marriage or Jesus himself you've ever said yes to. Why'd you say it? I was stunned the number of guys said, I like that there's a curriculum. I like that it's something hard. I like that it's calling me to more. I need this. I'm ready for this. I want to take this step. And so we're going to always involve curriculum in what we do. This curriculum will align with this mission statement. And we're going to have 3 tracks. One that's kind of a rooted track. You heard that word earlier, rooted, a 9-month experience that would then spill into a built-up experience, 18 to 24 months. And then kind of a finishing course, a capstone, this established type of thing. And we look forward to the man that goes through that, then overflowing into all the other parts of his world. We're going to focus on kingdom diversity. When Jesus taught us to pray, he said, on earth as it is in heaven. And then in Revelation we read, there was a great multitude that no one could count from every nation, tribe, people, and language standing before the throne and before the Lamb. Jesus Christ did not die for a bunch of white men in Williamson County. He died for the world. And the world doesn't look like me, not everywhere it's found. And Jesus Christ did die for white guys in Williamson County like me. But we have to have his eyes, and we're praying that he would help us to see through his lens, not through mine. A couple final things. We're going to have a major funding campaign. You were like, I was prepared to give today, but not a major funding campaign. Well, to go and to grow where we feel like God's leading us, going deeper and further does also mean financially. We believe that if we're able to grow in these 25 new area directors full-time with benefits, our budget will climb to about $5.5 million from the $2.5 million that it is today. And so we're asking God to provide. We are relying on his faithfulness, that he's called us to this, he'll provide for it. To do this, we're launching a major fund called the Lasting Impact Campaign. It's got 2 parts: setting the table, that's kind of an infrastructure, getting it ready season, and then we'll launch into a growth season. And so over the next 5 years, we're going to seek to raise just about $4.5 million to grow CLC into places that we've never been, and to hire teams that are excited to continue to grow our reach and to build a promising future. So you can be praying for that. Those are going to be some big asks. And we're going to do all of that so that 5 years from now, 20,000 men will have been through CLC. We're going to do all of that so that 20 cities in the U.S. and around the world would be added to where we are right now. We're going to do all of that so that 3,000 men would be involved annually in 350 groups. And we're going to do all of that to grow our team from where it is now to 25. That's 2030, and that's what deeper and further looks like. And we do it because of this vision. Our vision is that in every city, men would flourish by knowing God, radiating his love, and transforming the world. Knowing, radiating, and transforming in every city. If we're going to be in every city, we need to get started, and we're aiming at that 25 mark right now. So that's a little bit about our 2030, deeper and further. But I want to ask you about not the next 5 years, but maybe just the next 2. Something will be true 2 years from now. You heard Matt say he jumped in a CLC group right when he was losing a job. He was in the CLC group as he lost another job. He's in the CLC group when he finds out that they're having some struggles with infertility. The CLC group I led, the first one I led, a major friend who's here today lost his father-in-law, adopted a child at the same time, and got the promotion of a lifetime, all in about 3 months' time. The next 2 years are going to deal you some cards. Who are you going to be with when it happens? I want to invite you to come deeper and further in these next 2 years. There's a lot of things you can't control, but there are some things that you can control. And so what will the next 2 years look like as you go deeper and further? On your tables, you'll find this pledge card. Go ahead and grab it and turn it to the non-financial part. It looks like this. And we're going to put people before provision here. We're going to put you before us. The next 2 years are going to look like something. What if it looked like joining a CLC group and you see some options there? Could it be that God is calling you deeper and further? Maybe you have drifted into some shallow and he wants to bring you further out. Check one of those boxes and let us know. Maybe you are ready or you've already facilitated a group, and if I told you that I have a whole nother group of 28 to 33-year-olds that are looking for someone, looking for two men who'll say, we will take this journey with you, I wouldn't be lying. I have those guys, they're ready to go. So maybe God could be calling you to re-engage and start a new CLC group. Maybe you'd like to meet with somebody on staff, meet with me, meet with one of our area directors. You've seen a couple of them up here. You'll see another one in just a moment. Maybe there's just stuff going on and you'd like to talk, and you feel like you've heard something here that you want to talk about going deeper or further. Or maybe there's some other way that you'd like to help that we haven't mentioned. You'd like to help with our golf tournament, serve on our golf committee, or pray for CLC in a way. Would you just check in just a moment one of those boxes to say, that's how God's calling me deeper or further in the next 2 years? But let's bring it on down to this year, 2025. 2025, we have an annual operating budget of $2,538,217. This covers CLC everywhere we're found. All of our directors, all of our local operating team, all the things we're trying to accomplish are found in this number. And this morning at this breakfast, we've got a goal. And our goal is simply $253,000. That's what we're hoping that this breakfast provides. And we would ask you to pray and give and support this mission of equipping men who follow Christ, live with purpose, and lead with impact. If you're like me, you come to events like this and you kind of have the number, you know. I went to a thing last Thursday night, I had the number. And then I was touched by what I heard. The people that were sharing it, I knew them. I knew what they were about. And I decided to give a little bit more. If you came today and you said, hey, I'm going to give a $500 check and I got to get to work here in a second, I would just say, if you were touched by something you heard this morning, or if you would say CLC has made a significant impact in your life, would you, instead of giving $500, would you just change that to $50 a month? It's a little bit more, and it'll keep us in regular communication, and you'll know how to pray. So maybe that's a thing you could consider. Or maybe God has blessed you, and $253,000, you're like, I mean, I can't give all that. But I mean, how much do you need it? I mean, I could probably do 10% of that. And that's not all of us, so I'm only talking to a few. But if God has provided, and you would be so kind as to just help us with a significant gift that you think that'll really help them move it on forward, then I'll do that, or I'll do as close to that as I can, and we would ask you to pray about doing that. But then last, and I'm talking to a select few, if for some reason God has given you resources that enable you to make transforming gifts, we are trying to see God transform CLC into something deeper and further through these major campaigns. And if you're ready to fill something out here in a second, if you just write lasting impact, that'll be a way you'll be telling me, come talk to me. I've sold a business, a property, or I just have been given stuff and I haven't known what to do with it. And I'd love to just explore with you if this is the right thing for you and tell you more about what we're doing. So whether it's a monthly gift, whether it's a major gift, or whether it's a transforming gift, we're asking you to go deeper and further with us as we're trying to follow Jesus deeper and further into our future. We give you about 90 seconds. Fill out your card there. There's some pens on your table. When you're done, put the pen, your card in the envelope, the small envelopes. Then your table host will put them in the large envelope. And in about 90 seconds or 2 minutes, Danny Jeffries, who's one of our area directors in Middle Tennessee, is going to come up and tell you what's next. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in just a second.